I was actually kind of shocked that I enjoyed the combat as much as I did. Sure, it was repetitive, but it was like, for me, it was the good type of repetitive, I guess is how I would say it. Playing on, what was it, Nightmare difficulty or something like that. I never like felt challenged, but it was always still fun. So I had a great time with it. And I think those final 4 hours like really are fucking fantastic.
They're incredible. I agree completely.
The middle of the game, I think you can have, opinions and stuff like that, but man, those final hours are really fucking good. It just, for a lot of people, it's going to be a struggle to get the other like 60 hours out of the way to get to it.
I think so.
Yeah. And I also think the game starts off, I think the game like ramps, honestly, for the whole 60 hours where it just starts off really weak. And like the center of it was almost everything they had left over from like the games as a service. And that's like I feel like the beginning of that game was the last thing made.
Interesting.
In a lot of ways.
I can definitely like see that being the case. I'm not sure if it was the case, but I know what you're saying with it completely. So now that I've had some time since I beat it, and I won't spoil anything, I have some conflicting feelings on it for sure. Like in so many ways, I love the game, and in so many ways, I feel like it's really, again, playing on all of my feelings leading up to it. I think it does a really good job with environments, and like I think some of the cinematics are amazing, especially in the latter half of the game. I think that being able to hang out with your companions and not have to go kill things every time you hang out with them is great as well, and something that I think the other Dragon Age games were sorely lacking that we got, which was really nice. Getting some hard, concrete answers for questions that have been asked since Dragon Age Origins was really rewarding as a lore head. Like I have been writing down notes in a notebook every time I play any Dragon Age game. And so getting confirmations was great. And yeah, I agree with you. The third act is just incredible. Like I was just blown away, tears, really, really happy. I do feel at times, though, throughout my experience, the game felt a little bit like it was at odds with itself about what it wants to be. And I'm going to have to probably blame EA for that, if I had to blame anyone or point any fingers, because it sounds like this game took a whole bunch of different directions before they were actually able to settle on one. And I think we're lucky we got Veilguard at all, it sounds like. So I'm just grateful for what we have, But yeah, some of the like world building felt sanitized as well in ways that is confusing, because the game again is working upon things it's established from like Inquisition, and then it doesn't necessarily follow up on some of those things, which is an odd dissonance feeling when you're playing a game. So
sure. Dan, how far did you get in Dragon Age?
I am right before the end sequence starts. I'm doing all the side quests.
Oh, okay. You played more than I thought you had. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I'm just beat chapter 10, I think, or maybe 11. Yeah, so I'm like right before the thing where the one you'll have to do the rest in order, and you can't go back. So make sure you do everything.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You're in side quest hell, in other words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. There's a lot of like side quest cleanup towards the end of that, which makes sense. I mean, you got however many 6 or 7 companions and all the different factions and stuff to wrap up. So there's a lot of stuff that they, I think, give like a pretty generally good send off to all of that stuff. I thought the side, the companion quest were, trying to think back to see if there was anyone that I was just like not super happy with, but for the most part, I liked. Yeah, I didn't. There wasn't really one that like rubbed me the wrong way. I felt like they all had pretty good send offs. They were all pretty unique in terms of how they actually played out. There wasn't anything that felt samey between all of those. And so that was cool. And I really liked the like unique environments for every single one. That was especially cool. It didn't feel like I was playing the same game over and over when it came to all of the actual content in it. Some of those other quests, maybe in the middle of all of the side stuff, were a little bit samey, depending on the character. Some of the other characters, I guess I won't say who. I feel like some characters had like more budget towards what the goal was or what the side
Like
quest
they had
was.
more story and like more.
Yeah.
It was more was put in potentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
For their like companion quests and stuff. Yeah, I could definitely see that being the case. I've even heard like complaints people have said about certain romances having more content than other romances and feeling like a bit unfair about it, you know, depending on who you chose to romance in the game. But I can't say for certain as I've only romanced the old man. So
yeah, no, that's actually the same for me. I think
yeah.
we both somehow did that. Yeah. Dan,
yeah, Emmerich is great.
Yeah, he's great. Dan, do you know who you're romancing? I was basically a whore the whole game, and then I was like, all right,
same.
let's go.
I was forced to go into monogamy with the elf.
I was forced to do monogamy with the elf.
Darvin, is Darvin his name?
Oh, Davrin.
Davrin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Davrin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, his voice was just like melted butter, and I was just like, okay, we're doing it. We're doing this.
He's
he
so
was
great.
A very fine man. Very.
Yes.
Very nice. He's the one
I love him.
Yeah, he was. The other one I was thinking was Harding. I really like Harding. She's one of my favorites too.
Yeah.
But yeah, Darvin was. There was a point where it was like there was a quest that was like, are you going to commit to a monogamous relationship or always be friends? And I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting it so soon, so I had to monogamy with them.
Yeah, that depending on the character, I feel like it does. You do have to kind of like tie into it pretty quick.
Yeah. He was one of those for sure commit early characters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are there any cool people in this that like are cool with like open relationships? Like, is that not a thing?
No, you have to once you lock in with someone, it's over.
Oh shit! I'm never playing this.
Yeah. I know. I actually
the first game.
Yeah.
I want them to actually do that for the next one because so often I was like, why can't we just be like a polycule? Like, what's the problem? Especially because in Veilguard, none of your companions like really get upset. Wrong way.
Yeah.
None of your companions really get upset. Yeah.
High five for that word.
Polycule. Yeah. In Origins, I started romancing Liliana, and then I fell in love with Alistair, and I broke Liliana's heart, and that felt horrible. There's not really a sense of guilt in this game if you don't really break people's hearts in Veilguard. I kind of miss the consequence and the drama of it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what maybe one of the bigger things about it is that a lot of times with the romance, people, especially after like Baldur's Gate, I feel like people expected that stuff to be a lot more fleshed out. And this game was like kind of topical. Yeah,
for sure. I think people were expecting one thing. And even I would say Inquisition's romance is more akin to Baldur's Gate than Veilguard's is, I would argue.
Sure.
Especially as far as like content and length of content goes.
Yeah.
So it felt like a bit of a departure from norm. I'm not unhappy with it, but I am, I guess, surprised at it.
Dan, what are your thoughts overall on the game?
So one of my favorite games of all time, like absolute favorite, top 10 is Dragon Age Origins. It's one of my absolute favorite games. I adore it. The writing, I love every character. There's no game that to this day that I can just sit in a camp and talk to the characters and love every single one of them, no matter who they are, because they were all written so well. The writer, I think it was David Geiger back in the for BioWare. I think that was the main writer.
Yep.
He was so good at writing characters. He was just amazing, and they were all fleshed out. I think he did Mass Effect 2, and then Dragon Age Origins before he left eventually. I think he did a little bit of the other ones, but he was the main writer in those games, and it's some of my favorite writing. And so Dragon Age Veilguard it's a new style RPG. It's not Origins is very old school style. Like there's long dialogue trees, there's branching quests, there's a lot more choice that affects things. So first combat. I think the combat's really fun. It's like a nice fun action RPG. I'm having a good time with it. A little bit repetitive on the enemy types, not like a ton of enemy variety, but it's good enough to like keep you going through the quests and stuff. Nothing too spectacular. I have not been like surprised yet by a new creature. Like even when they bring someone in new, it's like, oh, that's just an ogre with a rock skin or something like that. Like that kind of thing is a little bit lacking on enemy variety. But the skill stuff fun. I enjoy it. The exploration of the world, I'm enjoying that. It's like it's the modern style, like open world, go around, try to solve a little puzzle. How do I reach this chest? How do I get to this item over there? Like that's enjoyable. I don't mind checklist open world kind of design.
Mhm.
The thing that I don't like personally about the game, and I enjoy it just not as much as old school gaming, is your character kind of feels like you're on rails, and you can't
Mm.
disagree with the companions or other characters much. It's kind of like I had the same issue at Fallout 4, where like every time you come up to a character, your options to respond are yes, yes but sassy, or yes but
Yeah.
stern. Like there's rarely ever a no or like
Yeah.
a disagree. So you can't really like. I don't feel
But
like
thou
the
must.
roleplay is as deep as previous games. Like I can't like
Yeah.
or do something evil like
Yeah.
betray the Dalish to the demons or something like in the old
Right.
game. So there wasn't much role playing there for evil characters. So the role playing options are less, and I get that. Like this is more of the modern style. Like it's a big game. There's lots of stuff, and the more choices you add, the more complex the writing has to be, and they have to
Mhm.
re-record a bunch of voice lines. I think we're all spoiled with Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 did that like in spades. Like they were
Totally.
old school style.
Yeah.
So writing wise, a little disappointing to me. How it ranks. I loved Origins, one of my favorite games. 2 happened, and it hurt me. Um, or Inquisition, I thought was a very fun game. I enjoyed it. It was like a bit below Origins for me, not quite as high as Origins because
Mm.
Origins is a brilliantly written game, and like even though Origins combat isn't as good as Inquisition's in a lot of ways, I think it like the writing was just so good, and I care about the characters so much that it pushed the everything forward for me. So
That
I
makes
rank
sense.
Veilguard right behind Inquisition. Like it's not quite as good Inquisition, not as good as Origins, but just a little bit behind that. It's enjoyable. It's currently sitting at about like a 7. Sometimes it's an 8 for me, like in terms of score. But I haven't gotten to the ending, and I hear the ending is like the really good part where like it all comes together
Yes.
so great. So I'm excited to get to the ending and like experience that for myself.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm enjoying it. It's not my favorite RPG ever, but I'm having fun enough with it that like I'm not regretting my playthrough, and I think it's fun, and I'm having a good time. It's not my favorite RPG, but I'm having a good time with it.
Would you say
Mm.
you're 100%ing it?
I am going to do just enough to like max out the strength of the factions and my companions, so that way I can like usually that affects the ending, like in BioWare games, like in Mass Effect 3, like if you have strong factions, it changes the story ending a little bit. So I'm
Mm.
expecting something like that. So I'm gonna max out strength and companion stuff. Once I
Yeah.
complete that, then I'll go to the ending.
It's okay. There's a secret thing. So I would say look at that if you want that, Dan,
Okay, I'll take a look
because
at.
it's very easily missed, and I don't want you to miss that as a long-term
Okay,
Dragon Age fan. Yeah,
I'll take a little look.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So, as someone who played Origins
I'll be right back.
years ago and not another one, I don't think. I think I played. Hold on. There was a Dragon Age, right? Just Dragon Age.
The first game's
No.
called Dragon
Age Origins, but that's like the original one. So yes.
Okay, so that is Dragon Age 1. Is Dragon Age Origins.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I played that one years and years and years ago. And I haven't played another one since.
Yeah.
Can I play this one and be okay? Like I know I should. They're great games. You should play Dragon Age. I get it. But if I don't have time, say, to play those, can I play this one and enjoy it?
Most modern day games now are like, if you haven't played the previous games, you may not know who someone is, but you don't really need to know who they are to understand the quest or the current story. So it's like
Okay.
a character called Morgan appears, and you might not know who she is. Like she's in the first game, so you might recognize her, but you won't.
Yeah, I
might not
remember
know
Morgan. Yeah, I remember.
Story or something. So like, it's nice to have that flavor, but it's not really mandatory to understand the current story that's happening.
What?
Okay.
Did you ask what do you need to play before this, Zeke?
Yeah.
I would
I think-
say, like, well, actually, Bree, you go first. I'll think about it more.
I personally, having just played through all of them back to back, devouring the lore, I think players who have not played Inquisition may feel a bit lost, especially its DLC Trespasser. There is a character in that is very relevant and their story is very relevant in Veilguard. And I think to not know that character, I think in the way that it's written the best, which I think is in those games, I think it can kind of dampen the impact of it once you get to Veilguard personally. But I think you can totally go in. It's just a matter of like, will it be like the most fulfilled experience that it could be, could live up to if you don't have that information going into it? I don't know. That's my own bias going into it though. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that as well, because that, and so much it is like a conclusion of all of that. That as someone who knew what all that story was for the most part, but didn't play, I wasn't like super connected to that aspect of this game's story. But at the same time, I still liked, like, I didn't have issues with the story in this that a lot of people did.
Yeah.
I do feel that like the writing at the beginning of the game is very not what it is at the end of the game. And that sucks because so many people are going to bounce off that really quick.
You can tell there was a lot of different writers for the game at different points. Like
yeah.
It wasn't cohesively written the whole time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you can also, well, for me, it's very easy to be like, that was from a games as a service video game. This was made because they needed something else, not from a games as a service. Like, it's really wild. How easy it is to like spot that stuff. But I never
didn't know it was originally a games as a service game until you said it just now. So it makes a lot of sense why there's so much grindiness in the middle.
Totally.
It was going to be a multiplayer game up until I think 3 years ago was when they pivoted. So like I said before, I think we're lucky we got Veilguard as it is at all, especially now having looked at the art book as well and seen all, I mean, obviously with art books, you're going to see all the different directions that a game could have gone. But even especially with this, it was building so much on the like coattails of Inquisition and Trespasser. And I don't think they got to fulfill the vision they really, really wanted to make because of EA.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Puzzles in the game are also insulting. Like they're so.
I wouldn't even call them puzzles. To be honest, I wouldn't call them puzzles.
I want to talk about insulting. I do have a bone to pick with this. The Varric exposition drops tell me too much. I want to figure these things out on my own. Stop telling me things that are coming. Like, please.
There's a lot of recap. Yeah. And honestly, it felt like I was like watching One Piece, because after everything you do, there's a literal text synopsis of the quest line you just did. Yeah. And it's like, as a streamer, I appreciate that because I'm not paying attention. I'm reading chat, blah, blah, blah. Might have missed something. But man, if I'm just casually playing that, I would probably get annoyed. Because it's just like, so you just came from doing blah, 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 blah. Yep, you did blah, blah, blah. How many times can they mention the fucking bad guys? Every goddamn sentence.
That's the thing. I saw a tweet that was like, every time after a question, it was like, and then John the Strangler was on the loose, like at the very end of it. It's like, I didn't know about John the Strangler until now you told me. Like, I could have figured that out on my own.
That is true. It was like watching honestly, it was like watching an anime at the end of every one of those like artsy sequences where you finished a quest line and then, John the Strangler's coming after you. And you're like, I don't even know who the fuck that is.
I didn't know that. Yeah. Exactly.
It was very anime inspired.
It made me wonder
on Dragon Age Veilguard.
Yeah, exactly. It did make me wonder if they play tested it and people it was not clicking with them and they felt like they had to treat the audience a little bit like they're dumb. Because that's what I felt like sometimes. Like, and I don't like Dragon Age historically has never made me feel like I'm stupid. Like, I feel like the way, sorry, let me explain. Let me elaborate. I feel like the game trusted the player to figure things out. The game is like Dragon Age in the world. It like does a really good job of showing you like, look, history has like a million unreliable narrators and you have to try to figure out what to believe, right? I don't feel like Veilguard gave me, the player, the same credit that some of the previous Dragon Ages did. And I don't know where in the line of development that falls, but I do feel like I felt a bit frustrated at times. I'm like, you just don't trust me as a player to figure these things out. Like,
that's been a big modern phenomenon, is that developers think that players cannot solve puzzles. The entire point of a puzzle is to solve it. And if you are making it so easy that it's not even a puzzle, why put a puzzle there? Just put a switch.
Yeah.
Like it's just insulting that you think that we can't solve the most basic of basic puzzles.
Mm.
I was playing the Squire game that came out, the Poppy Squire or whatever.
Plucky Squire, yeah.
Plucky Squire. And they had very simple, easy puzzles. And it right next to every easy puzzle was a hint guide that will tell you how to solve it if you need it. Like it was so babysitting. It just felt like insulting. Like we can't solve. You can't think we can solve this. Like I don't know. It's not just Bioware. It's every developer that does a big game now thinks that puzzles can't be solved by people. So let's make them super easy. So if the puzzle's not easy, we'll make sure that the NPC spoils it for you in 2 seconds, so you don't have to think about it.
Their opinion of us is so low sometimes.
I know.
Well, all right, there's going to be some dipshit who's out there going to badmouth the game because the puzzles are too hard. Better make a hint system so they can fucking figure it out, dummies.
Yeah.
I don't even think it. I don't think it's that there's some dipshit that's going to say the puzzles are too hard. I think it's that there's someone that's going to pick up the game and think that's too much of my time. I'm going to not play it anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a super. That's modern games in a nutshell. Ultimately,
when you make a game to appeal to everybody, then you end up getting very few of those people you're trying to appeal to. Like, there are people that love puzzles who will play a game that's nothing but puzzles, and there's some people that never want to solve a puzzle ever. So it's hard to please both.
Yeah,
you're just not going to.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. Okay. I wanted to ask JP personally since. You're the person on the panel who knows me the best.
Okay.
Is there a chance that Dragon Age Veilguard would get, like, for our end of the year show, would get crack my top 10 or be in the running for a category, any of the categories?
For you,
I think there's a chance.
I would say for you,
I'm already shaking my head and I just met you.
I'm going no as well.
Based on
we
saying,
high-fived over Polykill. We're good. We mean you simpatico. Or simpatico.
Yeah, simpatico. I was going to say.
I will take it off of my list then. Dragon Age Veilguard, I don't need to play it.
Yeah, I would say you don't need
JP, what
to play
were you going to say? Yeah.
No, that's what I was going to say. I don't think he needs to play it. I'm surprised that it will probably be on my top 10, especially after, like, part of me starts to go down this weird school of thought of like, am I just a contrarian? Like, do I just exist to be that jackass? But yeah, this is like, it'll probably be in my top 10. Going off what I've heard about co-streaming this game, it'll probably be in his like biggest disappointment. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, it was so funny because my chat in a lot of ways was basically a refuge for everyone that like wanted to watch the game but didn't want to deal. And Bree was probably the same way. Didn't want to deal with like what I think Co experienced. Co's playthrough of this, and Dan, I don't know if yours was similar, but Co's playthrough was pausing the game every 5 minutes and talking to chat like they're 5-year-olds and being like, guys, everyone can have an opinion, but don't be an asshole.
Oh God. It's like babysitting.
Daycare?
It was like a daycare. It was like a modern day daycare. I felt so bad. Yeah. Yeah. Cause he's streaming to 20 or 30 times my audience, or to all of our audiences. And so you get a lot of that drive-by commentary, but yeah, I had a much different experience with it and I really ended up enjoying it. So
the only thing that I'm actually of all the descriptions and everybody talking about it and all the things I've seen, the only like really thing that I feel like I've been missing out would be the actual gameplay of it. And I've heard that's really fun.
It's fun, yeah. It's
You like action RPGs, Zeke, like Diablo and like games where it's like killing lots of enemies and using lots of skills?
Somewhat here and there. I tend to be more turn-based or slower combat, like Dark Souls is like slower-ish, like the Shadow of the Erdtree notwithstanding because that was super fast, but like mostly it's like heavy swords coming down on you. Like I like that kind of stuff, and the option to use magical spells and stuff like that. Because every RP game that I play, if it's mage is an option, I'll take the mage option.
I think you would have a good time on the easiest difficulty with like a mage or a rogue.
Mage does have a cool power fantasy in this.
Yeah, I played mage. It was super fun. I also played on the easiest because I was just there for the lore and taking notes and getting the story. So I was like, I just want to cruise through the combat. And it was fun. I felt powerful and epic.
Yeah.
How long did it take you, by the way?
Let me check my Steam.
She's
well, I
probably
spent
closer
21. I spent 21 hours with the character creator. Yeah. Let's see. I about 90 hours, give or take. But I pause and take notes like crazy. I was theory crafting. I was working off of stuff like that. So you will probably be a lot faster than me if you don't do that.
No, I won't. No, that's the thing. Because there is such a thing as Zeke time, and like I take a lot longer. Like I finish games and I look like, oh, that took me about 50 hours. And people are like,
yeah, so
it's a 20-hour game. How the fuck did you make it last 50? I'm like, I don't know. I'm not doing this on purpose. Like I just talked to JP. It's like, what hour are you at? I'm at 80 hours. He's like, oh, so you're almost done. I was like, I'm about halfway through, I think.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Well, I didn't tell you. You were talking about that conversation was metaphor. I didn't tell you where you were. I asked you if you wanted to know where you were, and you said no.
No. Atlas games are one of those games that you can kind of gauge where you are in the game by the pie chart of the relationships.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Like, it's rare that an Atlas game doesn't let you complete all of those. And if you have a few of them that need like 3 or 4 or 5 pie pieces left, you kind of have a sort of a gauge of how much game you have left.
Sure. Zeke, I 100%ed it, and it took me 68 hours, and I was told that was fast. So
yeah,
it would probably be like 90 to 100 for you, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on where you dive in with that, which that's a lot of game to play between now and January. So.
And also, like there's something to be said about me. Like, I'll pause the game and go make dinner, and then I will come back to the game. So there's a lot of hours that are paused. Like, I have like 1,000 hours in Slay the Spire, and I would say probably 300 or 400 of those were just because it was running in the background all day for like several days. Because I would just like, oh, there's a tab open. Oh, let me play a hand. Okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So,
I have hundreds of hours in some games because I accidentally leave the game open and it's on all night. So it just adds time.
I do that too.
I hate when you do that. I legitimately make sure I never do that because I care so much about my playtime being correct on Steam. And I think that comes from World of Warcraft or MMOs because I care so much about /played time that I never want to be the type of person that has like you guys just said, X amount of hours, and it's like, oh, you sat in a town for 90% of that, so that's all bullshit hourage. I want to be like, no, I actually was playing the game for that much, guys. Like I don't do that type of shit.
No, it was a fucking revelation to me when I started streaming. That how I play games. Like I was unaware that not everybody did the same shit that I did. And with like, especially with turn-based games, like I didn't do that perfect. I'm going to reload until I absolutely do that 100% perfect.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
When I was like 18, I went on vacation with my family or something, and I left Half-Life 1 open on my PC, and that was like my most played game of all time for so long until my late 20s, which like trying to explain to people why I have like 300 hours in Half-Life 1 is so like, how do you even explain that? You can't. Like,
yeah, and that's the thing.
So embarrassing.
Everyone's like, oh, just reload the game. Steam doesn't factor in saves. They factor in how long that executable was running on your computer.
Yes.
Yep.
No way to change it either.
There's no way to change. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyways, you might find some fun in it. I actually really liked, like, when we talked about the first time, Zeke, I really was pretty harsh on the, like, itemization and combat and stuff. Having finished it, I actually really enjoyed how all that's done. Like, yes, it's 100% like a mobile influence, but a lot of that stuff is so fun to like mix and match when it comes to build diversity that I actually really enjoyed the itemization in the game. But it's 100% mobile influenced because, you know, I was hour 67 walking around in the final area looking for a chest because I wanted my epic chest to become a legendary chest to get like the last little, you know, 1% of damage that's not going to fucking mean anything. But I just want to have all legendary armor type deal to finish the game. And so it's all just like bullshit dopamine hits. But a lot of that stuff is kind of RNG on if you're going to get it or not and when you're going to get it in the playthrough. So, yeah.
Just to put it to you this way, in Steam, I have 113.7 hours so far in Metaphor. But in my save file, I have 80 something.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay. A lot of idle time in the menu.
Yeah.
Or the start screen. Yeah.
Well, it's just like JP just said. He just said it. I'll sit there and go like, okay, there's a new shop here. That's already an hour. And it's because the way the Metaphor is set up, I go through all of my, because you can't compare item to item. So you have to equip that archetype to see if that weapon is better. Or you just close your menu and write down from the, but it seems to be faster to equip the archetype, see if that weapon is better. And I never use that archetype. Why do I care? I never use it. It's like, hey, that's a better Faker weapon. Do you use Faker? No, but it's a better weapon.
You don't use Faker? Oh my God, it's one of the best classes in the game. So you got to use Faker.
I know. And you know what? Probably why I'm spending more time in the game.
To be honest, though, Zeke, to be honest, I sat in Merchant for probably 90% of that game. So I never had money issues. Like you just walk around and do everything as Merchant. Just get way too much money.
I do that. Yeah. After I beat the dungeon, I go back through the dungeon several times with Merchant.
Yeah. You just get so much
just
money.
to make sure like I got money when I leave the thing, because that's, you know what? Fuck this. We don't even talk about this. We're talking about,
yeah. No.
We're talking about Dragon Age.
That's what happens in Metaphor. That's how
and
it goes.
I want to say that the fact that you, like, let's call it, you said 90 hours, and that's minus the 20 you spend in the character creator.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which no one's saying needs to do that. I'm just crazy.
If it is not an overwhelming yes, you need to play it for 90 hours. Skip.
Yeah, I think you skip it.
I'm gonna skip it.
I think you skip.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a Zeke game. And I would, yeah. In like the grand scheme of things, I hate giving a score or anything, but I would honestly say, unless you're like kind of already in the Dragon Age fandom, it's kind of a tough sell.
Yeah.
I was like slightly into the Dragon Age fandom, and this game pulled me into it more. So much so that there might be a point where I like go back and play the older stuff, but
ooh, you should.
Yeah, those games are also so old now that I'm surprised that you like. Did you do any mods for any of those, Bree, or was it completely vanilla?
With Origins, there is like a mandatory fan-made 4 GB patch you have to install to even get the game running. And even then, I had issues with crashing. But beyond that, I think I modded like a few like quality of life things into Origins. DA2, I had to limit the cores down to 3 because it was more familiar with that because of the Xbox at the time, I think, the capabilities. But definitely doable, just maybe like a headache, especially on stream, because like there's nothing worse than your game crashing a bunch on stream.
Yeah.
But worth it. I mean, use Dan as an example too. Like Origins is like maybe one of my favorite games of all time. Like Dragon Age is great, and the world building and the lore and the characters in Origins are just like peak. So good.
Yep. We'll see what happens there. The crashing and stuff like that is definitely something that puts me off. Also, like I said, those games are just old. So sometimes old games have old systems from that era that doesn't resonate super well with me. So
it's a shame they haven't been remastered. I'm shocked they haven't. But
yeah,
Origin engine is really bad. So yeah, it's rough to get it running nowadays.
Yeah.